My name's Wolf, and through this series of videos I'm going to introduce you to the crazy over-the-top world that nerds like me love so much, that is Warhammer 40,000. So get comfy, buckle in, and prepare for a Noob-Splaining session. So, welcome back, and as always, this is the bit where I get you to do something. This time, I want you to help push the channel up the algorithm ranking by interacting with it. So that means you have to do something. Leaving a comment on your favourite part of the video, or the bit you totally disagree with, or you can head over to my community post tab where I've put a few quizzes up. Now they are aimed at people who are new to 40k, so if you've got experience you should find the answers quite easy, but all the answers are available in a previous video. Don't forget as well, for UK and EU customers, I have that link with Element Games for discount 40k and other gaming products, and for US and worldwide viewers, I've teamed up with Baron of Dice, who make amazing custom dice, like these Chaos ones that go perfectly with today's topic. And if there isn't your perfect dice at Baron of Dice, they will let you create your own. So for a long time, the three main Chaos gods were Nurgle, Khorne and Tzeentch. They each controlled a large section of warp space and were content to just sit there on their thrones. Then the Eldari had their fall, and caused the birth of Slanesh, and with Slanesh being born both massively powerful from all the Eldar souls it's consumed, and also being a massive pervert, it decided it wanted to stick as many different appendages into as many holes in the galaxy it could find just to see what happens. The other three gods decided it was time to get off their thrones and start doing their thing too. So, let's discuss what each god's thing is, and how they play on the battlefield, and how Chaos armies work as a whole. Now the faction of Chaos can be pretty much split into two. First of all, on one side you have all the demons, and on the other side you have everything else, which can basically be boiled down into Space Marines and Chaos Cultists, with all their attendant vehicles. Now when you create an army, you can create it of just demons, just Chaos Space Marines, or as a mix of both. Now when creating your army list, you have the option of creating one called Chaos Undivided, which all sounds very wholesome and friendly, but I assure you it's not. That's where you get to pick units from all four of the Chaos Gods. This gives you access to Abaddon, the current leader of the Chaos faction, and a few other unique characters, but denies you access to some of the more unique and powerful units, like the Chaos Demon Prince Primarchs, like Mortarion. Alternatively, your army can dedicate itself to one of the gods wholly, which restricts access to some of the more generic Chaos units and people like Abaddon, but opens up a whole host of specialised ones. And again, it can be just Space Marines, just demons, or a mix of both. Each of the gods' armies and units have a different playstyle based upon the theme of that god. Right, so let's talk about the different gods. Firstly, let's talk about Khorne. Now that's spelled K-H-O-R-N-E. Often misspelled and mistaken for the metal band Korn, spelled K-O-R-N, and also for the food, spelled C-O-R-N. Khorne is the Chaos Blood god, war and murder, often called the Blood god. Whenever you hear the phrase blood for the blood god or skulls for the skull thrones, that's one of his followers. To gain the attention of Khorne and to keep in his good books, you need to kill people. How many do you need to kill? Yes. Khorne wants the blood to flow, and he doesn't care where from, whether it's his followers or who they are fighting. All the blood spilled gains him power. He hates the use of psychic powers in some weird notion that it's not an honourable way to fight. But having one of his followers butcher a group of unarmed civilians, even kids with a chain axe, is perfectly acceptable to him. Like I said, the blood must flow, he careth not where from. Khornate followers generally paint their armour red with a gold trim. Well, more likely it was another colour, but all the blood of their enemies has dyed it red. If frenzied berserkers and even more frenzied demons are your thing, a Khornate army may be the one for you. The greatest demon of Khorne, which is the Bloodthirster, is an absolute unit again, and has more wounds than my beloved Land Raiders. Yes, that's right, the biggest, toughest tank the Space Marines have that transports Terminators is still not as tough as a Bloodthirster. The way you fall to Khorne is by giving in to your anger and violence. It's as simple as that. Next we have Nurgle. Nurgle is the god of pestilence and decay. All of his followers understand that all things must wither and die eventually. It is the natural cycle to life. They refer to their patron god Nurgle as Grandfather Nurgle. Like any loving grandfather would, he made them all infected with a bunch of diseases that make all his followers decay and become pus-filled horrors shambling across the battlefield. How nice. Ironically, his followers are immune to the more serious effects of these diseases, so they feel no pain and are now ironically immortal after accepting death. His armies reflect this too. They have a lower than normal move rate, but higher toughness than their equivalent units, making them slow and tough to kill, letting you lay down lots of firepower as you slowly advance across the battlefield, corrupting and decaying everything. Literally, they have rules that causes enemy near them to be reduced in toughness because they've been infected with diseases, and they can also infect objective markers to capture them with the diseases, which is a neat little rule. Although they are often painted in green to represent the decay, a lot of painters really go to town with rust and other decay looking effects to make them look like they have more diseases than a $10 whore. The Greater Demon, the Unclean One, is an absolute tank of a unit that can soak up firepower all day long. It can dish it out too, but nowhere near to the level the Bloodthirster can. To fall to Nurgle, first of all you must be afraid of death. Secondly, you then must accept that everything will wither and die, and everything will decay away. And then, Nurgle will infect you with diseases that do just that, except you will wither, you will decay, you will become a pus-filled horror, but you won't die. Ironically, gaining immortality after being afraid of death and then accepting it. Tzeentch is the Chaos God of smashing your head on the keyboard until you get something vaguely readable and then you pronounce it by missing half the letters. I mean, who the hell spells a word T-Z-E-E-N-T-C-H then pronounces it without using the T's? Just drop the damn T's. Anyway, Tzeentch is actually the Chaos God of knowledge and the master of psychic sorcery. Using too much psychic power at a time can result in you being horrifically mutated into a demon spawn, which is basically a blob with tentacles, claws, too many eyes and mouths in places where there should not be. But there's also a good chance Tzeentch will do that shit to you anyway just for fun, or maybe just give you a power boost. Tzeentch's army is characterised by having a large number of psychics, and even units that can also produce psychic blasts. They are a well-rounded Space Marine and Demon army with an emphasis on ranged attacks for the Space Marines, and while the Demons also have better range than melee attacks, the Greater Demon, the Lord of Change, is no slouch when it comes to melee combat. Again, it's not a bloodthirster, but it will still fuck up your day in a kinda insides are now on the outsides fashion. It does, however, have the choice of doing it by mutating you or just ripping you in half. The army itself is more about manoeuvring to capture objectives and shooting than just getting in the face of your opponents or laying down excessive fire. Most Tzeentch units are blue with gold and white trims. The demons are mainly shades of blue down to white, and a few are pink just so you have something different to paint. In the lore, Tzeentch is depicted as the most powerful of the Chaos Gods and has schemes and schemes within schemes. Because of this, it's said at any time he could bring about his forces destroying the whole universe, but he doesn't want to because where's the fun in that? He would no longer be able to play the great game as he calls it. When one of the Chaos Gods gets a bit too powerful, it's Tzeentch who brings them back down, either through a carefully manipulated scheme or a good old-fashioned pimp hand. The way you fall to Tzeentch is by obsessing over knowledge that is out of your reach, whether it is beyond your current means or it's just things you should never learn. And finally we have Slanesh, who is the Chaos God of excess. Literally, excess in everything, from gluttony to lust to megalomania. Slanesh gains its power from two sources. Firstly, any Eldar that dies ever since their fall, its soul is reserved for Slanesh. Secondly, when any sentient creature takes anything too far in any direction, i.e. to excess, Slanesh gains power. Followers of Slanesh are constantly looking for that high from experiencing something new. The problem with that is, as soon as they get it from something, they keep doing it over and over and swiftly get bored and then are looking for something new again. Needless to say, a lot of these things often result in some perverted actions, which is how Slaneshi followers get a reputation for debauchery. You know the naked hobo crack addict that is shooting up whilst masturbating to the passing traffic stood on the corner? That's a prime example of a Slaneshi follower. So is someone who is utterly vain and can't walk by a mirror without stopping to admire themselves and make sure everything about them looks absolutely perfect. Two examples of taking things to excess in two different directions. Now at the time of writing this, we still don't have the Demon Primarch Fulgrim back in the setting, which is probably a good thing, so we don't have a standalone codex for the forces of Slanesh. If it's anything like before, it would be a fairly mixed force of units dedicated to either ranged or melee. The Marines will probably be more ranged and the Demons more melee. They will likely be fast moving but weaker than their counterparts. When it comes to colour schemes, it's pretty wide open. The Demons generally range from shades of dark pink all the way down to white, and the most popular Slaneshi Chaos Marines are the Emperor's Children, with purple armour and, as you would expect, an excessive amount of gold trim. However, it is also in their nature to paint their armour in any colours they want, even paint individual pieces of armour in different colours, so you can really go to town when painting Slanesh units, or you can keep it as simple as you want. Just imagine, you get a bunch of Slanesh Marines all lined up in the same colours. Sooner or later, one of them is going to think, fuck this, I'm going to hold a chicken in the air and stick a deck chair up my nose. I'm going to buy a jumbo jet and then bury all my clothes. I'll paint my left leg green and then extract my wisdom teeth, form a string quartet and pretend my name is Keith. And let's see who gets that reference. Weirdly enough though, that is exactly the kind of thing a Slanesh follower would do. The way you fall to Slanesh is by taking anything to the absolute extreme. I'm not just talking about doing general tasks to the best of your ability, I mean really take anything to the absolute extreme. Most of the people who fall to Slanesh have fallen to Slanesh without even realising. Same with Khorne, Nurgle to some extent. Most people who fall to Tzeentch do it on purpose just to get the additional power that he will offer you. So in closing, these new Chaos lists really have my interest peaked. For a long time I wanted a few Khorne demons, namely some Bloodthirsters, and I still have some Nurgle units in my pile of shame to pay. But right now, Chaos are the only faction that feels like you can really specialise your army. With all the other factions becoming very all-round at initial look and thus opening them up to new and old players who don't want a highly specialised army, whilst also having the ability for any faction to become highly specialised, this has once again highlighted to me how much effort was put into the possible options for a 10th edition army list. And I must say, I'm very impressed, especially considering they gave it out for free. But then there's Chaos, who can be as all-round or specialised as you want, or, like I said, can be really specialised. Khorne armies sacrifice ranged and psychers for raw brutality. Nurglesque armies sacrifice speed for toughness. Tzeentch armies sacrifice melee units for an excessive amount of psychic attacks. And Slanesh will sacrifice its granny if it thought it would get a kick out of it. For those of you asking about how I'm getting on with my how to play 40k videos, they are in progress, rest assured. What I'm trying to do is break them down into small bite-sized manageable chunks that cover each aspect of the game as you're progressing through it, which will then allow you to just jump into each section of a video to learn about what you need to do in this stage, so you're not skipping and forwards back through a 20, 30, 40 minute video trying to find the one specific rule you need. And there we have it. Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a comment. Better still, if you know somebody who could do with a bit of noob-splaining on Warhammer, then share this video with them. And at any point, if you've learned something or laughed, then please hit that subscribe button. I won't ever be doing a Patreon or a merch store, so that subscribe button is the best way you can show your support and thanks from me.